of people going to the school board, talking about things like CRT. And CRT is this like idea, a way of thinking essentially that spits out things like the 1619 Project, right? Where we look at history in a totally different way with totally different eyes. Even things going back, like they are now taking books that were true and marking them as fiction. Can you walk us through this?
Yeah, so a great example. Up From Slavery was a book done by Booker T. Washington, who unquestionably is an American hero. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know his story today. I would say that this is, if you're going to want to learn and study American history, this is in your probably top 10 books you should read to know about America, her past, her history. And so you have a guy, Booker T. Washington, who was born into slavery, who is a child when the 13th Amendment is passed, and he remembers that night when there was a big party because now the law's finally gone into effect, and so his mom and all the people around them are free. He walks through the story, but what's crazy is, in this story, he doesn't have a victim mentality. And because he doesn't have a victim mentality, that's not very well received in the modern mantra of the narrative America.
Yeah.
Because it's not well received, when you look at the new editions of Up From Slavery, in the front of this new edition, it actually has a section to the reader. And in the section to the reader, it says, "This book is a work of fiction, and any resemblance to any person, living or dead, in any place, events, or occurrences is purely coincidental."
Is there any evidence that this is a work of fiction?
None at all.
None at all.
And one of the arguments could be, right, maybe this publisher is just putting this in the front of all their books to try to cover themselves.
Sure, yeah.
Right, so maybe you're covering yourself, but you're going to cover yourself by pretending like Booker T. Washington wasn't a real person and he made this up?
Right, yeah.
That's how you cover yourself?
That's not a good way.
I feel like in the midst of woke culture, right, where we have this Black Lives Matter movement that's been going on for several years, and now we're diminishing the influence of one of these great Black American heroes. Well, I would want to diminish this guy because so many of the early Black heroes in American history don't fit the modern narrative of the victim mentality of critical race theory.
Yeah, and I think that's such I mean, our foundation was this, right? It was a terrible, difficult time, right?
Yes.
For so many people, and they overcame it, and that's what built the foundation of this country. And I guess it's no surprise that the people behind things like CRT want to tear that foundation down. They want to make everybody into a victim and go the other way.
Well, and this is part of that Marxist ideology where you only have two classes of people, the oppressed and the oppressors.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're going to fall in one of those categories, or, the victims or the victors. And this is what so often when we learn history, we learn it from the Southern Confederacy perspective all over the nation, right? That America was pro-slavery. Actually, America was not by and large pro-slavery. We just have lost so much of that story.
That's an interesting way you put that. The Southern Confederacy's view of the nation. That's what they would want everybody to believe, that this country was pro-slavery. That's not true at all.
That is the narrative being told. But no, so if you look at the northern states, when we separate from Great Britain, and this go back to Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration, one of the reasons he wanted to separate was because there were several colonies who had passed anti-slavery laws, and the king had vetoed all of those laws. And so like Pennsylvania, for example, Benjamin Franklin, one of the leaders in Pennsylvania, in 1774, the king vetoed their anti-slave trade law in Pennsylvania. So Franklin says, this is one more reason we should separate from Great Britain because they won't even let us in the slave trade in our own colony. Hold up. There were founding fathers like trying to end the slave trade. Yes. One of the really fun examples, this is a lithograph back from the 1790s, early or late 1700s, and this is John Hancock, and this was from an equality ball that was done in Massachusetts. So one of the guys who was there, the wealthiest black man in America, is a man named Paul Cuff. And how could you have these wealthy black people? Because in the North, they had a respect of the individual and respective rights, right? There was meritocracy. It wasn't based on the color of someone's skin. And so John Hancock wants to do something to celebrate the unity in Massachusetts, the black and white people coming together. And actually, what's kind of funny is the only reason we really know about this is we found a newspaper written in one of the southern states who were talking about how foolish John Hancock was arguing for the equality of the black and white man.
Yeah.
But it does tell you something that there was a founding father, noted founding father, John Hancock, right? Leader of the movement when we separate from Great Britain, signer of the Declaration. He's a guy promoting the equality of the black and white man. So this notion that America was fundamentally racist, or 1619 Project says that we were founded to promote slavery.
Incredible.
It's just not historically accurate if we would actually go back and study original documents.
And they just will not do that. I mean, in your book, you go through a lot of this stuff.
We do.
Give me one more minute here. We're almost to the end of the time. But another statue that they're trying to tear down was Benjamin Franklin. I mean, he's my favorite founder because I love that he wasn't president. Like, he's just an inventor. He's doing stuff. He's out there doing his own thing. And he was an abolitionist.
Yes.
Absolutely. Can you give us a quick chunk on Benjamin Franklin and what his view was of slavery?
So one of my favorite founding fathers as well. I think even though one of the better known, one of the most underrated founding fathers.
Yeah, I think so.
So incredible of a guy. So Franklin, like many founding fathers, where people say, well, all these founding fathers are racist slave owners, Franklin did actually own slaves. However, Franklin also did free his slaves, and after Franklin freed his slaves in 1785, Franklin actually became the president of the Pennsylvania Abolition Society, or maybe 1787, but he became the president of the Abolition Society to end slavery around the nation. And the reason that no honest historian considers Franklin a racist is because not only did he free his slaves, not only did he have an Abolition Society where he became the president of it, even Franklin's treatment of slaves, they were much more as friends and family. Franklin wasn't, we have this perspective in modern history that if you had slaves, you were this terrible, awful, abusive person, instead of recognizing at an era where everywhere in the world, like this was a custom everywhere in the world, and it's not a defense of it.
No.
Right? But
absolutely not.
When this is a normal custom everywhere in the world, the humanity with which you treat the people that are in your household or are your servants, and obviously slaves right in this category, Franklin treated them in a very different category, recognized their humanity, freed them, and then leads the movement to free every other slave in America. This is not a racist guy, and that's why no historian considers him racist, even though today he would fall in that category because at one point he did own slaves.
Amazing. I mean, there's so much of the stuff in the book. It's The American Story, The Beginnings. It's available now. Make sure to pick it up. David Barton and Tim Barton put it together. You know, there's tons and tons of stuff that you did not know in any book written by a Barton. You know that's true. Tim, thanks so much, man. This is great.
Stu, I appreciate it. Thank you.